How's that? Is that better?
Hey, yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Well, I'm Ken, and it's nice to meet you.
Hi, Ken. Nice to meet you too.
So I saw your profile on Podcast Guest, and um, I read your profile, and I thought it was super interesting that you're into cryptocurrency because I love cryptocurrency, and I've been into it for a couple of years now, into the investing part of it. And it's cool to meet kind of people that are also into it and part of that technology, part of that future. So I was wondering if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got into it and a little bit about what you do
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
take it from there.
For sure. Well, first of all, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much for finding me interesting and for inviting me on. But I grew up as the daughter of an entrepreneur. So my dad was the original founder for LifeLock. He also really struggled with mental illness. So he's very publicly bipolar. And so I got to watch a lot of the personal habits that really ruined success, what not to do as an entrepreneur to be successful. So going through that, I learned what I wanted to do was to support entrepreneurs in the things that made them successful. That meant not buying into doing things the way that we've always done them. That meant listening rather than imposing my opinion because I didn't care what they built. I just wanted them to be successful. And that eventually led me into what is this thing that is crypto. So that was just very interesting to me because I've always seen the glaringly obvious issue with the way that we have our monetary system as it is. It just never really, there was no value in it. I said, what is the value of this piece of paper? It's really an assigned value. So how do we really find true value? And I think that's the potential that cryptocurrency brings to the world. And I was very fortunate. I got to study under and live with my mentor, who was a magi of natural spirituality and also is the CEO of a blockchain design company that creates asset-backed digital tokens. So being able to be on the floor level of blockchain asset design was really incredible. And then also being able to study as it's called natural spirituality, which is like a spin-off of Buddhism, which is very nice.
That's awesome. That sounds very similar to, kind of like what I believe. And as far you talked about our current financial system, that's one thing I've talked about on my channel is, the centralized bank. I've always been back up a little bit. I've always been a Ron Paul fan, and the Federal Reserve, he talked a lot about the Federal Reserve and the centralized banking institution. And a lot of people don't realize that they're privatized, that they're not federal at all, that they literally control our entire economy behind closed doors. And when I heard about Bitcoin and the decentralized aspect of it, I was a little confused at first. I didn't really understand how it worked. And I have a little better understanding now. But for people out there that maybe don't understand how Bitcoin works, could you explain that maybe a little bit? Because I've tried, and it kind of comes out jumbled sometimes.
For sure. Well, because there's lots of aspects to Bitcoin, right? Because there's the question of Bitcoin investing, which is a whole different animal on its own. But I like to get back to first principles, like what is a Bitcoin? And the thing is about Bitcoin is that it's not a coin. It's access to the ledger. If you have a Bitcoin, you have a key, and that key gets you in the door to make the adjustments to the ledger, and that's the ultimate goal of Bitcoin, is to adjust the ledger. And everything else is just the machine that keeps that going. So that includes trading Bitcoin, that includes hashing, that includes mining. All of these things are just the components of the machine of the ledger. And that's really what it comes down to. Because the original internet was built with no trust, right? We don't trust you, so we have to verify you. We got to go back and forth. But Bitcoin was built that, well, it's not that we don't trust you. We don't trust anybody. So everybody gets to see what we're doing. And that is what really opened up the door for inclusivity, because it didn't matter if you were a human or a computer, what color you were, where you were, what you were doing. If you could get on the internet, you could participate in Bitcoin.
Right. So it requires everybody for it to operate and for it to work, which, that's a decentralization aspect of it, which is great. So And when you're getting into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, I feel like there's two aspects to that. There's the part where, you see the monetary gains that are being made with crypto, and
Yeah.
it's ridiculous, but there's also the technology behind it that is going to help shape and form a better world. Because I think a lot of us out there, we want to see a future that where the people are in control, where we take back control of our future. And what are some projects out there, cryptocurrency projects, that are really going to help shape the future that we want to see?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, because what's the goal, right? What are we doing this for? And I agree that it's about, everybody wants to feel like they're in control of their own finances and in control of their own reality. But what we've learned is that we really are just kind of pawns in this very privatized economy. But I think what Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general gives us the ability to, or gives us the access to, is to really define value. And so for me, the most exciting project is the one that I'm involved with, which is called Only. And Only is different from the ground up because it has what's called a vessel. And it's where you contain value, you store it, you keep it safe, and you can move it around. It's not a Bitcoin, because a Bitcoin is a copy of something, right? I have the key and I send you a copy of the key. A vessel, I have the vessel and I transfer it to you, and now you own the vessel. The only way that it works is with biometric technology, which is pretty easy. My phone is biometric. It reads my face, reads my fingerprint. Most people have access to that kind of technology. But what it does is that it takes value into such a bigger realm than just money. And that is how we take these informal ledgers from all over the world, and we start creating value for people that doesn't just include money. So that for farmers, that includes land and livestock and crops. They're able to trade those things. They're able to, people who create crafts are able to sell those, like ETFs or EFTs that are going around. That is incredible. So
I'm not sure I'm familiar with those.
EFTs. So EFTs are these really cool digital commodities that are being created by artists. So instead of them like giving you access to their like SoundCloud, so you can see all of their songs, they will send you a digital file, like this crypto file.
Okay, is that
to you, and you purchase that, like the encryption code, to get access to the file.
Is that similar to like an NFT? Is that?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay,
it is
no,
an
okay.
NFT.
Okay, I actually just did an episode on that yesterday, I think it was, and I read an article because I'm still learning about NFTs because I've been hearing about them a lot,
Mhm.
and kind of what's going on with it. So, okay,
So that's intellectual
right.
property that we have created a value token for. So I remember the first presentation I watched on Only, they were talking about the cannabis coin they created for the state of Arizona. It's called Alta. So this now allows cannabis businesses to trade dollar for token. A secure truck comes and picks up your money, takes it to an insured vault. You get tokens on the network, and now you can pay people across state lines because it's not a currency, it's a commodity. So now we have decentralized the entire cannabis bank with this product.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
That's
they
cool.
were giving this presentation. They go, the asset we're talking about today is cash. And I said, well, what other assets can we talk about? And they directed me to Patrick Byrne, the CEO of Overstock.com. And he
Okay.
was the one that introduced this idea of these informal ledgers, because that's how we created the laws for the United States. The gold rush came out, and the miners were like, well, who gets to mine where? Who gets to claim what? So they started putting just maps on trees, and listing stuff. So when the judges and the lawyers finally made their way over, they said, oh, well, they've got this figured out. We just have to make it official. So what's happening in third world countries is that they have these informal ledgers, but no way to validate it. So terrorist organizations, those kind, and bad players can come in and they can officiate with gang signs and brandings. You are under our protection, so we'll keep you safe. So we get to verify if this is true, and we can also manipulate it to our own liking. So the people of these third world countries don't have the option to either give in or die, or take the bureaucratic route, which is impossible. It takes years, it takes hundreds of thousands of dollars. They just do not have, it's intentionally a barrier. And crypto gives them the ability for someone to come in. It's like the Indiana Jones mission of the century, to come in, find these ledgers, digitize them, and give them access, as long as they have access to the network. I love your cat. As long as they have access to the internet, which is getting easier and easier to do, we can create a system of value, a network of value that's not just cash, that can't be perversed. And that is what hope looks like to me.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, every day that goes by, it just seems like, they just keep printing more money, and there's only 21 million Bitcoins, right? Is that correct? That can be ever produced.
Yeah.
So that value, that value, there's no risk for inflation there, obviously, with the cash. So it's crazy. It's crazy. So you said you are working with Only. Is that that's a developer of a new token, or is that?
So Only, the way they describe it is ONLI. The way they describe it is that they are the fabric, you are the designer, right? So we create the basic software so that the asset, if you own an asset, we can digitize it. So for example, somebody comes into a bunch of gold, right? They have gold stored in shipping containers all over the world, and they need a way to liquidate it, right? They need to be able to flip it. So what they can do is they can either physically ship all of that stuff to a central location, inventory it, sell it, distribute it. That's what's going to start raising the price of gold.
Right.
Or they can come to us. We can categorize everything. Everything has a serial number. That serial number gets assigned with a vessel. There's only one vessel. And then we are able to sell those tokens. And so you sell them, you validate them. I'm Saudi Arabia, and I want to buy the containment ship, the container full of gold that's in Saudi Arabia, because that makes a lot of sense. I can purchase those tokens, and now I actually own the gold. I have a certificate of ownership for this gold now. Okay. And so as long as you have the asset, whether it's cash, gold, water, land, cotton, cows, and you have a way to serialize it, you have a serial number for it, we can digitize it. That's all you got to do.
That is awesome.
It's really cool. So, it's no matter what the asset is, it can get into the cloud.
That's cool. I love that.
So for me, that's the future. There's like I said, Patrick Byrne's keynote for Overstock is a great video to watch. And also, if you haven't yet, very interesting is the Creature of Jekyll Island, which is the story of the oh my gosh. People printing money. Why can't I think of the word? The Reserve, the Federal Reserve. It's the story of the Federal Reserve.
Okay.
Creature of Jekyll Island. It's amazing.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Have you Bix Weir? I follow Bix Weir on. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but he has a Road to Ruta website, and Road to Ruta was actually a comic book strip that the Federal Reserve would release, and they would like tell their plans and everything through the comic strip. I think this was like back in the 40s or something. I'd have to double check, but yeah, that just reminded me of that with that story that with the Federal Reserve.
So the SparkNotes version is that these 13, guys who got together over these like 9 days met in this place called Jekyll Island, which is, a vacation spot for the ultimate, ultra wealthy.
Right.
And it's just like how they hatched this plan.
Right. It's crazy. One token I talk about a lot on my channel, and I kind of would like to bring up, is Theta token, which is an NFT token. Okay. And have you heard of Theta token?
No.
You haven't? Okay. So Theta token it was created by the co-founder of YouTube. I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but they are a decentralized video streaming service, and it's been making massive moves investment wise.
Yeah.
2 years ago it was like 13 cents, and it's like 13 right now, $13. But yeah, it's crazy. But the decentralized aspect of the video delivery service is really fascinating, and that's one token I go to for an example of kind of how cryptocurrency is shaping the future and how it's going to positively impact society. And I was just curious if you had heard of that or not. if you had any thoughts on it.
I have not heard of theta tokens, but I'm having goosebumps hearing you talk about this because I agree that decentralizing the video distribution is key to so many things. I mean, I remember someone made a comment offhand once, said, YouTube makes Nazis. And it's not what we're all learning is that it's not the intention of the creators of YouTube, it's the algorithm. The algorithm just wants to give you what you want because that keeps you engaged more, right? There is no real like cruel intentions with these software developers, but we are human beings and we are, our weakness is ourselves. And so we just keep going down the worst, rabbit holes for us unless we're intentionally pulling ourselves out, which is where spirituality comes in, right? You have access to the whole world and you get to choose where you point your energy.
Absolutely. I love that. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So it's, but I agree that like decentralizing the video, that's a huge space.
It's absolutely huge. And it surprised me how many people haven't heard of it, because they're just granted their second US patent to get this thing on the road. And there's kind of a need for it now, with this whole COVID thing. Doesn't matter where you stand with that, whatever. That's another discussion for another day, but there's a need for cheaper video delivery, with the schools and just all that stuff going on. So
for sure.
Yeah, I encourage you to check it out. Yeah.
Well, it comes down to digitizing value. Now the value we're digitizing is our human experience. We get to video ourselves having experiences and share that. That's valuable.
Absolutely.
And that's what we turn into cryptocurrency. That's what you turn into an asset, a digital asset. That's brilliant.
That is brilliant. I want to kind of shift over here to one of the questions that stood out to me. I had for you was about naturalist.
Mm-hmm. Master Naturalist?
Master Naturalist, yeah.
Sure. So there's two things. There's the Master Naturalist and then there's natural spirituality. So natural spirituality is an agnostic religion that I adhere to. Makes me what's called a Q. And then Master Naturalist is it's a Arizona sponsored or a state sponsored program. It's in most states around the country that allows you to learn a lot about the natural history, that gives me the ability to lead volunteer programs, walks, nature trails, helps me with community science, allows me to get my foot in the door with legislation for conservation efforts as well.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's $150. It's, one night a week for a couple of months, and it's a lot of fun. And then you get access to so much stuff. Like, the museums have a laughable amount of stuff on display, but as a master naturalist, you can go see everything else.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's just a small thing that you can do as a master naturalist. Sorry, I have a hair in my eye.
So,
but yeah. So which would you like to learn more about? I'd be happy to tell you.
Both, actually. I'd like to, hear about both.
Sure. So let's see. Let's start with Master Naturalist, because I'll go down a whole rabbit hole with natural spirituality. But
that's so okay. That's all, I love that kind of stuff. So feel free.
Excellent. So I actually found Master Naturalist because I became very interested. I live in Arizona, and there's a very deep, rich, dark history of the indigenous culture. And they cultivate, this land was so well taken care of, and it is such a unique ecology that I just wanted to learn how to better take care of the habitat that I live in by the people who were raised to do so, because I grew up in the city. I don't know what I'm doing. And that thing doesn't exist. That learning resource doesn't exist. The closest thing I got to was these Master Naturalist program, and it's a volunteer, strictly run program. I'm the communications coordinator. Actually, it was just nominated. But what we do is we come together, we try and share resources and just provide as much education to each other so that we can go out and provide education to the rest of the community about why it's important to go outside, to plant gardens, to not throw away plastic, to, just all of the best practices in nature that people, I think they do care about, they just forget.
Right.
So it's, it's one of those things where once I had that revelation, I can't not stop and look at a tree now. And it's one of those things where you don't see it until you see it. Your whole life is like, did you ever, my best analogy for this is like, think about the first person you dated with a car, right? And then you broke up. You saw that car everywhere. You never noticed a green Buick before, but now you see every green Buick on the street.
Yep.
And that's exactly what it is for any idea in your life, you know. So if you have the intention and the gravity towards, you know, the natural world, you will notice the natural world, but that's not an emphasized priority in our lives. And so I made it one in mine.
I absolutely love that, because, you know, that's kind of my stance with everything, you know, because it feels like the more superficial we become as a society, the more disconnected with Gaia we become. And, you know, it's, for me, that's what it's about, dude. That's what this Age of Aquarius is all about. It's about transitioning into the next density. It's about reconnecting with the earth and taking our power back, kind of, you know, taking our planet back, you know. And like you said, I can't walk by a tree, you know. I'll walk by a tree and just feel like I just got to touch it for a minute, you know, like feel its energy, you know. Yeah, exactly. And that sounds like what that is, right? As a naturalist, is just kind of you know, reconnecting to the planet and the earth and like our life force energies. You know, that's a big one, is the life force energies. We don't even realize, you know, how much like the sun affects
Untapped
us.
potential.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, and absolutely. And that's, unfortunately, Master Naturalist is more based on the science of the natural world, but it does, like, just a small example. So there's a couple apps that you can download, like iNaturalist is one.
I
And
love
there's
that one.
yeah, but logging that data is not only fun, it's incredibly important. Like, legislation looks back on that data for conservational efforts. You know, that's what we try and partake, you know, in part as Master Naturalists, is like, as much as you enjoy the natural world, there are things you can do by incorporating the things we have with the modern world that can really help the environment that we have. One of the other, so I work with two other companies. One of them is called Local High. We are a cannabis marketing company that accepts those alto coins I was telling you about. So we accept digital tokens. But I also work for a company called ESA. And what we do is we create self-sustaining energy power supplies, because we have patented and mastered 0-point energy technology capture. So we have total self-sustaining off-grid technology, and that gives me tons of hope. You know, knowing that there is the possibility that there comes a day that we're no longer reliant on man-made energy sources, because we can't find a way to do it without killing stuff.
Absolutely. That's so funny you brought that up, because I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts is Tinfoil Hat with Sam Tripoli, and he's always has different guests on there. And he had a guest on the other day who's talking about free energy, and you know, he went into detail about that a little bit, and how, you know, free energy is like the same thing as free air. It's just there, you know. And this is a huge topic, but you know, I do believe that free energy is suppressed. And there's you know, it's obvious that free energy is being suppressed for whatever reasons. But, you know, I definitely would like to see,
money is the reason.
Right, money is the reason, absolutely, you know, the people in control. But, you know, what's the future look like for Bitcoin and crypto and energy wise? I'm totally confident that it's, you know, it's being put out there right now that it is a problem, and that's the biggest problem with Bitcoin. And it may be that the energy consumption, but it's also pushing people towards new ways of creating energy. And do you want to talk about what are your thoughts on that?
Hell yes. Okay, so real quick, we all know that Elon Musk just bought, like, what, 50 billion, how much billion dollars of Bitcoin? So there's something in public companies that have a profile called ESG. It stands for environmental, social, and governance. It's a voluntary initiative, but basically it shows, you know, is this company raping the planet? Is it doing good by their employees and their communities? And are their leaders competent in doing ethical actions? So Tesla's ESG rating, which is bad for investors, is going to tank because of this purchase Elon made for Bitcoin, strictly because of the energy consumption. It off-puts he's making electric cars. He's getting us off of fossil fuels, but this Bitcoin purchase is so serious because of the energy consumption. Being able to take free energy, 0 point energy, or wherever you're going to get it, but the vacuum's the place,
Right.
that alleviates all of that pain. And I feel that my biggest hope is that the crypto space is going to be one of the first to adopt, that it is relatively easy for a mining operation that's taking on all of that energy. It's their energy source only comes from a generator, right? But it takes a lot of money to power to generate.
Right.
So you don't have to integrate a whole bunch of new tech to make a new power supply run it. It's still energy is energy. The hardest thing in nature, in science, in idealism is the membrane problem, is the how do we capture it, and how do we keep it safe, and how do we move it around? That really comes down to the crux of how do we get this thing moving? So I have a lot of faith, I have a lot of hope that the free energy movement will be quickly adopted by the crypto movement, because it just takes so much energy and they can't help people the way they want to until they solve that problem. So it's just, it's one of those things where as humans, it reminds me of Ford's quote that if Ford asked the public, what do you want? They would have said faster horses. Right. And so we have to stop crowdsourcing these ideas for doing things just faster and better and more lucrative, and start breaking it down to first principles as what's the most important thing, what's the most impactful thing we can do right now, and then just go from there. Absolutely. So it's powerful.
It is powerful. That's awesome. So I don't know if this should be an okay question, I guess. Bill Gates is the owner of more farmland in America than anybody now. So how can blockchain and how can agricultural technologies innovate how we grow and raise our food?
Ooh, great question. So I think that the fact that Bill Gates has most of the agricultural land is going to ultimately be nefarious, and he's just ultimately going to be sitting on a bunch of land, because the answer for me is vertical farming. There's many companies that do it. I think Iron Ox is one of my favorites, but you can yield more products for less money in a fraction of the space, less water, less power, or totally organic. It's closer to the store that it's going to. So now you get to eliminate all of the infrastructure costs. The cost of fresh produce is going to go down. And with Bitcoin, again, it just comes back to digitizing that commodity so that you are able to, and at that level, that's more B2B, and that comes into the infrastructure. So now we don't have to worry about invoices and trucks and all of these things. It's going to go from here to here because I have the ownership and I just got to get it here. And it's just, if we can do things faster and smoother, it just makes everything cheaper and more accessible. Because here's what it comes down to. People would give stuff away for free if they knew that they could succeed, if they could keep feeding their families, if they could keep doing the things they wanted to do, if their lifestyle wasn't disrupted. People are willing to give away everything. And so we just have to find a way to assimilate. And there's a smarter way to do it. We have the technology.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. I love that. That's so cool. Awesome. I'm terrible at following questions. I just kind of go with, the conversation with whatever. So, I don't know where you want to take it.
I'll take it anywhere you want to go. I mean, I love the opinions that you have. I would just love to hear I was very interested in the connection that you made between Bitcoin and spirituality. What is it about Bitcoin that makes it feel like a spiritual awakening?
I think personally what it has to do with is, people waking up to the fact that, there's been a corrupt, privatized banking institution that's totally hijacked our economy. And, central banks are all over the world, and everybody's seeing that now and kind of realizing, like, hey, something's not right here. We go in and set up central banks everywhere. So, and by not knowing what they do and how they really operate, and the fact that they just can endlessly print money, when people wake up to that, then they see decentralization in Bitcoin. I feel like there's a little bit of a spirituality awakening there with that, because that's starting to go down the rabbit hole, when you start seeing that our
For
banking
sure.
systems, corrupted. And that just like kind of leads from one thing to another to another. And, there's people out there that are into Bitcoin just solely for, making money or whatever. We all are, we all like to make profit, but, the deeper I think understanding is knowing that we're creating the future. And that's kind of the link, I think, between spirituality and Bitcoin, in my opinion.
And I agree. I think that the biggest thing is that when people realize that like the Federal Reserve is very privatized, you know the moment the rug comes out from under you, right? Everything shattered, everything and that's a really ugly, really scary place to be on an individual level. For sure. Right? And you become very infantile in the way that like, oh, daddy's not around anymore, right? So I have to figure this out for myself. I have to go learn about Bitcoin. I have to go learn about decentralization and how to take my power back for myself. And that process is just one that I found that a lot of people just aren't willing to do. I mean, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can show them all of the proof and they still don't want to know because they just don't want to know. And it's not about ignorance at that point. It's about indolence. It's about just mental laziness and
it's and comfortability with the perfect, the system we're in. A lot of people don't want change. They don't like change. There's thoughts out there that Bitcoin is going to be this, prophesized one world currency. I've heard that argument. And honestly, I think that's a bunch of crap, personally, because if you think about it, we already kind of have a one world currency. I think almost every country in the world, except for North Korea, I believe, has a centralized banking institution that operates under an elite group of people. That's not even a secret. You know what I mean? So, and they've been around for roughly 100 years, 1913 when the Federal Reserve was established. So, a little over 100 years. I think that's the one world currency already. And I think we're transitioning into the next density, the age of Aquarius, where truth is revealed, and we take our planet back. I think that's and that's exciting to me. But that's why when I hear the Bitcoin one world currency thing, I just kind of I don't worry about that.
For sure. I think one of the things I try and be very cognizant of is that the idea of linear time, the idea of beginning and ending, is a very human thing. It's a very human construct. So there was a beginning of the Federal Reserve, so that means there will eventually be an end of the Federal Reserve, right? There was a beginning to centralized coins, and there will be an end to centralized coins. Because what happened was we were all just trading and bartering, and then a king decided to put his dollar or his face on a coin. And so then we got really tired of carrying around coins. So we put all of our coins in a bank or in this big building, and some guys sat outside with the ledger. And the Greek word for bench is banco. So that's how we had our first banks, where guys literally just sitting outside keeping track. And the people who kept the ledgers had the power. And so that's why having access to the ledger as a Bitcoin is the value. That's the attractive value of it.
Right.
You have to be integral in your actions, or else everyone's going to see that you were the one that did it wrong. So there's, that aspect to it, which is beautiful. But I try to remember that the Gaia, that the nature moves in cycles, and that it's not about something coming to an end so something new can begin. It's about that this has evolved, that the pain that we were experiencing was the pain of this collective death. And we started to grow roots. And I firmly believe that the people who started the Federal Reserve, they were trying to make money. They wanted to keep the money that they had. Old money is very, very old. They wanted to create order and systems so that there could be the Century of the Self is a great documentary to show that in like the 50s, The reason we stopped having wars is because we started getting into consumerism. People were so obsessed with themselves, they stopped wanting to go to war. So that's amazing. We've had much less death, much less destruction, but we haven't figured out how to balance this yet. And so I think that, you know, the Federal Reserve was the first try and it didn't work. And now Bitcoin is the second try, and that's a better shot. And we're learning as we go. And the most important thing is just to be kind and compassionate to one another, because nobody knows what we're doing. And I guarantee you, none of us will be alive when we figure it out.
Right, for sure.
Right. So, and the idea of singularity, that's a black hole. That's when it ends. That's when life and biodiversity ends, is when we all start to think the exact same way. So I like to try and remember that the opposing opinions and the opposing forces to change are still what makes us alive. And that's what makes it exciting. And so I get to do what I want to do every day and live the life that I want to live. And I choose to advocate for Bitcoin and decentralization and the natural world and free energy. And that's all I can do. And the rest of the world will keep turning as it turns. And I just keep my energy goes where my focus does. And I just try to remember that keeping my energy on something I can't control doesn't do me any good.
That you put that absolutely beautifully. That was great, because I love that. You're absolutely right. You know, you got to shift your energy into what is going to make you happy. Not only that, and help humanity, help, you know, the people in your circle and you know, closest to you, you know, help that, because we get emotionally invested in things that are out of our control, like you said. And for me, that was like kind of this past election a little bit, you know, things were crazy, but I realized after the end of it, like, wow, like I was in this like hypnosis trance and just, you know, involved in it emotionally more than I should have been.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's when I kind of decided, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna break free from that, and I'm just gonna kind of focus on inner healing, you know, trying to get my mind clear, reconnect with the earth. And really that's what it's been ever since then, you know. And I don't know where I was going with that, but you know, I love that. I love the future, what the future has for us. You know, it could either be bad if we want to make it bad, or it could be good if we want to make it good. We got to focus on the good and
That's, you know,
and manifest the future that we wish to see, you know, that's going to help people evolve in a healthy way. So
absolutely. And that's
like, all it comes down to, you know.
exactly, you know, the old kindergarten adage of, you know, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And, you know, not to get into too political of a sphere, but my hiccup with the inclusivity argument is that it's very exclusive. Mm-hmm. Is that you have to like earn your right to talk about inclusivity, and that if you have a differing opinion of the mainstream opinion of inclusivity, mm-hmm. you are wrong. You are now on the outside. And that's just something I want us all to be really aware of. You know, I think that I am not a Christian. My family was raised Christian. And so I think that I'm very sensitive to the criticisms. Mm-hmm. And so for me, my biggest thing is that there's an us and there's a them. That's the reason that they've survived for so long. You know, the study of religion is that, you know, all of these things. Mm-hmm. But as long as there's an us and there's a them, we will never move forward faster. Right. Whether it's Democrats and Republicans, whether it's Christians and non-Christians, whether it's whites and blacks, as long as there's a them, right, we're still in the same spot.
And that's what we have to break. You know, it's a classic divide and conquer tactics. It's just, you know, and that's all it's ever been. You know, it's like you said, with religion, with, you know, even from an early age, a friend and I were talking about this, you know, we're taught to divide, you know, like football teams, you know, like childhood teams, like my team's better than your team type thing, you know, and it starts at a very early age, dividing people. But you're absolutely right. We need to learn how to coexist and come together and just love people. You know what? That person believes in that, but I'm okay with that because, you know, that's their path. That's how I feel about it. You know, like if that's your path to be a Christian, that's fine. I'm not either. You know, my parents raised me to be a Christian. I grew up in a very Christian household, but, you know, I always kind of felt like, you know, there was questions out there that nobody really wanted to answer, you know, with aliens and things like that, Genesis 6 giants, and just kind of the history. I just feel like our whole history has been altered and controlled. And how do we really know? You know, how do we really know? But without getting into that too much, you know, that's it. It doesn't matter though, because like we all are on our own path, you know. And if it's helping you towards your higher self, if it's helping other people and it's improving, you know, then
Absolutely. There's a mantra in natural spirituality that says you are you and no other. And that was a deep lesson for me, because the hardest thing I struggled with was that it felt really selfish. You know, my sister has a lot of health issues, and I felt I was very emotionally invested in her her health journey. And my teacher was like, "You're not her. You're not experiencing that right now. You don't have to carry that. You know, the life choices of someone else is like the guy in front of you at Subway ordering a sandwich. You don't have to eat that sandwich.
right."
Do whatever he wants on it." But then it really comes down to, oh, so it's not selfish for me to not be emotionally invested in someone else's journey. And that was a big step. And then it became, oh, well, I don't have to be emotionally invested in someone's journey. I don't even care about a stranger, you know, and I don't give two shits what your journey is. And then it kind of gets coupled with this other mantra that all of fear is only imagined, right? There is what is real and what is not real. You know, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
It's a pen. Or if I put something on top of it, it's a base. Or I could wear it as a hat. Or what it is not defined by what it's called. What it is not, what I know for certain, is that it is not me. And that's the only truth that I can really carry with me, because there's no such thing as a context-independent truth. What's true for me is not what's true for you.
Right.
What's true for us is what's true for my pen. My pen lives a very different reality than I
Right.
do. So why does it matter what the truth is? Because that's, for me, is that this big, I don't think there's going to be a big reveal. I don't think there's going to be a big bubble burst where everybody goes, oh my God, yeah, let's all go outside and hold hands.
Right.
It is a deep, dark, tear-filled, gut-wrenching journey you have to go through to be able to come outside and go, I accept me for who I am, so I can accept you for who you are.
For sure. Absolutely. And that ties in kind of with past guests I have on reincarnation a little bit, I believe. You know, which would be a great conversation for another episode, you know, but I just, you know, I love it. You're right. And you know, you know, I couldn't agree more. And I don't have I got a few more minutes here. I don't know if you want to wrap up with anything, if you want to talk about
yeah, I'll do just the couple plugs that I have.
I apologize. I just kind of like, you know,
we covered a lot.
We did cover a lot, yeah. And you know, I'm really interested in that only business. Is there? You said there's a website for that, right? Okay.
Only.1.
Okay, only.1. Okay, and I'll add the link to it in the description or whatever. But I want to check that out. And do you guys have a token that I can purchase on an exchange for that company? Is that
you can purchase one of the tokens we've created? Like Alta is its own token. We don't own Alta. We just gave Alta the technology they needed to create Alta. So we don't have a coin. You can purchase Alta coins, and the other we're working on a few others, and you can purchase and trade those. But the Alta coin is strictly, I believe, for cannabis right now.
okay?
So you can only exchange it for like cannabis goods.
Okay.
But it's coming. Believe it or not, there's a lot of red tape. In order for us to make some of the moves that we have to make, we have to change laws. It takes time, but it's well worth the endeavor. So only is the fabric. You guys are the designer. So if you have an asset that you want to digitize, we can do that. Local High is the marketing company you want to use if you are a cannabis business. And then ESA is the energy company that provides free self-sustaining energy to off-grid components. So that's what we're here to do.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Real quick, you mentioned, the red tape and the kind of regulations and things like that. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin and regulations in the US? Do you think that it's going to be, there's talk that it's going to be outlawed. I personally don't think they can do that, but what are your thoughts on some of the regulations as far as cryptocurrency goes in the US?
Smoke and mirrors. It is all smoke and mirrors. Every state in the union is looking into creating their own digitized coin. They all want to use it because it's better for taxes. It's better for the DMV. Like, could you imagine how easy civil life would be with digital currency? They know that. They know the money they can save. All of the regulations is smoke and mirrors while they create these coins so that the people who want to invest in them have the opportunity to do so at a lower price point.
Wow, that's perfect. That's the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They're just the price suppression, and we're seeing Bitcoin pull back today. It's like 56,000, I think. But I think it's so undervalued. You had the mayor of Miami, I think it was like a month or two ago. He was talking about he wanted to adopt Bitcoin to pay city employees in, let people pay their taxes. I'm just like, wow, this is great. Why aren't more people talking about this? We have local elections coming up. People, should be talking about this, I feel like. So the regulation part of it, yeah, I'm not worried about it personally. I just was curious what your thoughts on that were going to be, because even if they outlaw
I can tell you that Miami is seriously developing a coin for themselves.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because Bitcoin, I love Bitcoin. I will always love Bitcoin. My God's honest opinion on it is it will be a nostalgic commodity soon. It was the icebreaker. It busted through the door. We needed Bitcoin to do what it did, but now there are smarter, faster technologies that will eventually supplement the Bitcoin space. And so we just, we honor and we thank Bitcoin for everything that it did.
For sure.
We will eventually end up leaving it in the past.
For sure. And I say Bitcoin and, because there's a lot of people out there that you start talking altcoins and things like that, they kind of get a little lost, but Bitcoin's king. So if people ask me, and I'm not a financial advisor, but people ask me what they should get into, I just tell them Bitcoin, that's the safest bet. But for sure, there's so many projects out there. I'm a big Cardano ADA guy. I love what they're doing. I'm not an Ethereum kind of guy, but that's okay. We all love our different, we all love our different tokens for sure. But just their technology in the future I see for them is just like crazy. It's just, so.
Yeah. The possibilities are endless. It really is. It's what you make it, man. It's the age of Aquarius. That's what the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius to me is just fertile fucking soil.
It is. It totally is. And we are like right in the beginning stages of it. So we are just, and I can feel the energy from it. I feel like this is going to be a good year. Like, I just know this is going to be a good year. I'm an Aquarius myself. I'm a January Aquarius. And
I'm a Capricorn.
Are you? Nice. That's awesome. My Mercury's in Capricorn. So I'm, I try to communicate, I feel like I communicate like a Capricorn in some ways.
For sure.
But this was so much fun. This is cool. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
I had a blast. Thank you so much.
So